she is a third grade gifted teacher at Glendale American Elementary School in the Glendale Unified School District. So today she joined with us to talk about the achievement gap, and I was reading on Huffington Post that it said that Chicago Public School District posted that 129 schools are in danger of closing because of this. So could you share with us a little bit of insight and what you kind of learned as your journey along teaching, like how it affects you as a teacher, how it affects your students?
So Chicago Public Schools is pretty much what we would call our sister district. So it is set up the same. It is in a low-income area. It is very closely resembles our school district in the way that the percentage of different students in our school and how they perform on tests, as well as many other things. But the problem is that these tests that are given to these students are not reflective of who they really are and what they really know. So given these, one of the problems is that they're seeing is that these standardized tests are aimed at a certain percentage of their population and not filtering out and helping the other percentage of their students succeed.
How do you mean by that? Like, how are the tests formatted? Like, how do you judge whether it's for one culture or another culture?
So since I'm the gifted teacher, I am able to give the gifted test. So I see that some students have, at our particular school, we have pen and paper tests. In the other district, Chicago has pen and paper as well, but certain schools within that district are given tests on the computer. And so it's you have to know your way around a computer to figure out either your accommodations for it or figure out how to go to the next question or how to type your answer in. So students who have a computer at home and are able to access it and be comfortable with this test are going to perform better than students that did not have that ability. So students that don't have a computer at home, let's say, would take more time trying to be comfortable with the computer and figure out the controls and not focusing on their test.
Right. Okay. So I heard you mention a little bit about the gifted test. So what in particular gives it some bias? So for one side or the other? So
on the gifted test, it asks very, I wouldn't say culturally insensitive, but it's not all-encompassing questions. Okay. So for example, there's a question on one of the older tests that we have gotten rid of that was you had to match the word up with another correct word with it. So one of it was cup. And the matching word with cup there was table, saucer, fork, and something else. I'm not sure what the other option was. But the answer that went with it was saucer. And not everybody knows what a saucer is unless you are a certain class. So
right,
upper middle class, you guys know that a saucer goes with a cup, but other students who have their parents working 2 full-time jobs and trying to support this family in the lower income areas aren't going to know that a saucer goes under a teacup and these kind of things, and it's just not culturally known that way.
Right. So it's like economic status related in a way, kind of.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's really interesting. Did not know that. So do you notice any particular cultures that do better on these tests than others, or is it just economic status wise? How do you think? Works?
Economic status is probably the biggest thing. So upper middle class, those questions are aimed towards those kind of people because those are the kind of people that write these tests. It's not a very wide range of test makers and administrators, so all you get are these very biased opinions on what should be included in this test that makes somebody gifted or not. So one thing that I remember is that I had a student that was from another culture that the women in their culture they're not raised to be leaders. They're meant to follow and support the men in their culture. And with that being said, on these tests, they're looking specifically for leadership qualities and these answers that would kind of imply that this student that is taking this test would be a great leader. But the problem with that is that these women are raised in this culture to not submit, but they're not meant to be leaders. They're supposed to be the support to the men and
the
background.
Role.
Yeah. And so on these tests, they're not going to do as well because it's not what they know and all these things that they know, but they know that they can't answer a certain way based on their cultural roles and how that all plays into who they are.
So does it have like academic questions? Like it tests what they know, but it also has like what they might learn at home and stuff like that?
It's mostly like what is implied with home teaching. So like I'm not specifically going to teach my kid what a saucer is in my 3rd grade class. It's not a spelling word that you see weekly.
Right.
It is something that you just kind of know at home if you have those laying around. I don't explicitly teach like, well, this is a teacup, this is a saucer. You know, we don't have tea ceremonies necessarily, but it's more of implied based on your economic status.
All right. Awesome. That's really interesting. So what advice do you have to kind of close this gap, to try to get everyone on the same page and have all students meet in the middle somewhere so they're not extremely gifted or extremely low in academics? So do you have like any insights you could share with us about how teachers might be able to close that gap?
Ideally, it would be more one-on-one testing, meeting the child where they are. But what we can do right now, and what we all should be doing as educators in this field, is making our committees who create these tests come from different backgrounds and more spread it out towards the community and really analyze what that community is like and what kind of questions these people in this community would know, as opposed to, well, let's give a blanket test to everybody at all times and just judge based on what we think they should know.
Right, so make it community-based testing rather than standard, everyone does the same thing kind of testing. How would we measure that with everyone else, though, if we did that?
I mean, there's a general, like, standards that everyone should meet at one point. But there's different ways to teach the standards that's going to be relevant for students' lives. So judging it based on committee here, and then these committees meet at a summit or a conference and discuss how they could kind of grade these tests, to say, and to figure out what standards each person needs to meet. But these communities all have to go out and practice first, and then bring it all together at this meeting.
Right. So in all, that would make it more relevant to the students, and they would be more invested in school, and they would just do better overall, right? Like that's how I think it would happen.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, like that definitely needs to be something that they need to start considering. So thank you, Peyton, for your advice and your insights. It was so great to have you here.
Thank you.
Just a brief overview if you're coming in late. We talked about the achievement gap and how it affects students and teachers and the different schools in different areas. So we've specifically talked about Peyton School, which is in a lower income area, and what she notices based on what kids are in her classroom, and she also gave us advice and ways that we can maybe close this gap so it's less obvious, so that all of our kids can be on the same page. All right, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Stop with composed.
No, you weren't. Okay.
Oh, begin.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Howe, and I'm...
I want to be like, welcome to the 75th Hunger Games. What? I'm just sitting here like... It's a quarter quill.
The game shows.
I'm Caesar Bookerman.
We need to like insert bloopers at the end.
We are going to, because this is just ridiculous.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Howe, and I'm joined today with Miss Peyton Orcutt, who's a gifted teacher at Glendale American Elementary School. So today we're going to be talking about the achievement gap. Sorry, do you have a problem?
I can't. I did. That's why I was confused, because I kept jumping.
Shh.
Well, and so having these